Hello and welcome to Derry GAA TV, and I have a very special guest alongside me this afternoon here in Owenbeg, our new Senior Football Manager, Paddy Tally. Paddy, you're very welcome along to Derry GAA TV, and firstly I suppose congratulations.
Thank you.
And how does it feel to be new Derry Manager?
Yeah, it feels good this morning now. We've had a lovely morning, spent a good time with Stephen, and we got around Owenbeg, got a good look at it again. It's bringing me back to, I was here before now, a lot of changes since the last time I was in Owenbeg, so it's very, very impressive. And it just feels good this morning. I was coming up over the Glen Chain and just felt excited for the first time in a while. I felt really excited about something.
We'll touch more on that in a little while. Just a little bit firstly, I suppose, Paddy, on your background coaching. I know you said you've been here in Derry before, of course, as a coach. You've been with Galway, Kerry, Down, St Mary's. You've touched on the management as well. You were there with St Mary's when the Sigerson Cup. Down, I suppose, difficult times. It was COVID time, so it was a difficult time that time. But your coaching and management background, and you're a Tyrone man.
Yeah, I'm a proud Tyrone man. But I suppose I've been at this now. This is my, suppose I've stepped into 21 years since I stepped into my first senior role, working as a coach in 2003. As we were appointed in November, I think, 2002. And that journey has taken me right across Ireland into the only province I haven't worked in is Leinster. But it's been a great journey. I've enjoyed it immensely. I've met some great people along the way. I'm a big believer in the fact that a lot of what we get out of sports, actually the people who we meet through it, and having the opportunity to work with various teams has definitely stood to me. I always feel that there's learnings wherever you go. If you start back in Tyrone, as a young coach, I think I was just 29 when I took on that job, and we had success in our first year. I suppose the first All-Ireland Tyrone had won. We had a really good. It was really good at time in Tyrone, and it set you on that path for this is what you wanted to do. And then having an opportunity to work with Down in 9, we went to All-Ireland final in 10. So I was there from 9, 10, 11, and we got to All-Ireland final, beaten by Cork by a point. One, I always look back and say that was one that got away. Would have been an incredible win for Down that year. And then coming in here in 13 along with Brian McIver and working closely with Brian, and I remember clearly we had a Derry team it was a really tough time for Derry football in the sense that we had teams that were competing very hard to win All-Ireland clubs and Ulster clubs, which meant then you didn't see a lot of the teams, the starting Ballinderry players, Loughneel players, you didn't see them after the 17th of March. So you generally played your whole National League those times without some of your players. And those 3 years we were here, we had players gone searching for Ulster club championships. So I always felt that it was a difficult then to get things ready for a championship when you hadn't the players in the league. But in fairness, they worked really hard. We got to a league final in Croke Park, albeit we hit by a Dublin juggernaut, and set us back a bit that time. But we learnt an awful lot about ourselves that time. We learnt a lot about the Derry players, about the Derry culture and the people around it. And I always found that there was a serious desire among the players to do well for Derry. They wanted to emulate the great teams of the 90s when Derry football was at its pomp, and I always felt that there's something in the Derry people and the Derry players that was very, very strong. So the 3 years I spent there were great. I thoroughly enjoyed them, and then I had an opportunity to all through those years I was managing and coaching the St Mary's Sigerson Cup team as an add-on to my job as a lecturer in St Mary's. So I was dealing with a lot of players, especially a lot of clubs coming through from Derry as well, and Tyrone and Down and Armagh and the rest. And you had a real good feel of the landscape of Ulster football, because a lot of these guys that were very good at that age were then going on to represent their counties at senior level. So you're always very much involved in that whole frame and sort of very much aware of what was happening. Then obviously moving to Galway in 17 or 18, had a year with Galway, and again National League final to Dublin, All-Ireland semi-final to Dublin, pipped in 2 real tight games, but we won the Connacht Championship that year, which was nice. And then having 3 years as the Down manager and picking Down into get them progressed and get them into promotion in a higher league, and leaving Down in a better place, we picked them up. So that then left me coming out of Down, and to be honest with you, the next one was a complete bolt from the blue to get an opportunity to go and work in Kerry. And having spent 3 years in Kerry and winning All-Ireland with Kerry was a very special time. And probably was the one looking back and looking when you're younger, you're always intrigued. What do they do down there? What's going on? Why is Kerry the way it is? And we never really understood it till you're actually in Kerry and you work with them for a while. You get a feel for why football is so important to the people, the players, life, everything about them. And I always feel that. I always feel when you work at the top level of football, it means the world to everybody. It means the world to them, to their families, to the clubs, to the people. It doesn't matter whether it's Kerry or Tyrone or Down or Galway or Derry. It doesn't really matter. People are football people. Football means the world to them. And Kerry's no different to Derry or anybody else. So I thoroughly enjoyed my time in Kerry, and I've made some great friends, and for the rest of my life, I'm sure, it's this place you end up sometimes going on holiday and I'll be able to see them again and whatever. But we also meet in a few weeks' time in Celtic Park, and that'll be crack. But the learnings you take from each one of those places, there's a wee bit of learned from each one, and I'd like to think that 20 years on that I'll be able to take the best of my learnings and impart that onto this group of players.
That's what I was just going to ask you. You have so much experience of that, from coaching to management. Do you feel there's a big difference between the two?
They are two different roles, but I still will be coaching. I'm a coach at heart. I've always was a coach. Even when I was managing St Mary's, I was coaching St Mary's. When I was managing Down, I was still coaching, didn't coach them Down. And they'll be different. Yeah, I still like coaching. I still like being on the field with the players, night on night, working with the players as well. Paul McIver will be my head coach,
yeah.
Which is, I'm delighted to have Paul on board, and he'll be a fantastic head coach for this team. Well assisted by Paul McFlynn. And ironically, when the first year I coached St Mary's, Paul McFlynn was a student, and I had 1 year Paul as a player at St Mary's, and I admired Paul McFlynn as a player from that time and right on through his career. And even when he was playing for Derry, he was an exceptional footballer, a player that I just loved watching, the way he played the game. So, and one year, one of my colleagues in the PE department in the college was off on maternity at Derry. Elaine McLaughlin, a girl from Derry, she was off on maternity, and Paul did her maternity leave, and he coached the St Mary's team with me that year. And I remember saying to myself, that he's a young coach at the time. He had so much to so much to offer, and I'm delighted now that he's going to get a really good opportunity to show what he can do, and to bring himself on in a place where I feel that he'll really flourish. Mm-hmm. And then with Kevin McGuckin, I always admired Kevin as a player and as a person, and he's all Derry, and he's all heart, and he's a massive competitor, and to have him as the fourth man coming into the team is absolutely so essential, that there's somebody there coming in who can bring an energy and an enthusiasm and an honesty and a level of integrity that those young men will look up to. And Kevin has that in bucket loads. So I've surrounded myself with three very good Derry men who have a standing within the county and a standing within the group, and I'm sure these young men will look up to them, and they'll be a great help for me, and they'll be a great help to the players. Well,
that's very important too as a management team, and it sounds like it was an easy choice picking those three lads to come along with you.
It was the three people I wanted. Straight away, the first person I spoke to, Paul McIver. I've wanted to work for Paul for years. I've watched what he's done. I've watched his progress as a coach. And the clubs he's went to, when he was in Donegal as a coach with Brian, when he was here with me in Derry as assistant coach back in 2014. Watched him in Kilcoo and his success with the Kilcoo team, and the success he's had in Dromore and Tyrone. I've always admired Paul, and the time he was with Fermanagh as well. So I watched him, his progress, I've watched what he's done, and everywhere he goes, Paul is success. He's a player, he's a coach and a manager who brings success to the table, and that's no coincidence. It's no accident that happens. That's a person who's very much invested in his craft. So really, really looking forward to Paul heading up the coaching team and bringing all his experience to this group.
Just obviously you touched on desire in Derry a little bit earlier, and I suppose at the moment there is that desire to succeed. They're coming off back-to-back All-Star titles, a National League title last year, so they're on a high, and Derry's in a good place at the moment. I suppose back-to-back minor All-Ireland champions as well, so football in Derry is very good at the moment, and Glen, of course, All-Ireland champions last year, Steelstown Intermediate All-Ireland champions a couple of years ago, so Derry football is in a very good place at the moment.
Derry football is probably in its healthiest state it's been for a long time. And I think anybody will say that. Even come back to that time when, say, Ballinderry were winning an Ulster club in All Ireland, or Slaughtneil were winning Ulster club and competing hard. Derry County football wasn't going just as well, but now it is, and it has been going. And that's credit to the development system that's been in place for a number of years, and the work that's been done from minor to under 20 and to the seniors. And all credit goes to those coaches. Also, you have to also compliment the schools. St Pat's Mahara, the Convent, who won the Hogan Cup a few years ago, and you have to say that's an example of what's happening in the schools. Not only those schools, but also the other secondary schools. And then you have to look at the clubs, and you have to say like that you mentioned Glen, who have been bringing through Ulster minor champions, Ulster under 21 champions, Ulster senior champions, and All Ireland club champions. But after each one of them Glen teams that's winning, there's a team that's hunting their heels that wants to get there as well. So the standard that Glen have brought to it is up in the ante for every other team. So if you look at those games where Glen were successful in the Derry Championship, there was only a kick of a ball between them and the team beside them in a final or a semi-final. So, a rising tide lifts all ships, as they say. And I think that's happened Derry for a few years now. So we're starting to see the fruits of that labour at the senior level, and the senior team's it's a strong team but a young team. The age profile is good. There's lots more development to happen, and good players coming through the youth system. So it's a good time.
I suppose then Newbridge made the breakthrough this year, first time in 35 years. So that, as you say, they upped the ante this year and got their award. So it's an exciting time, as you said, for yourself to be involved. The club championship, I know you're a Tyrone man, so you always keep a close eye on the Derry Championship. You probably had plenty of opportunities this year to keep a close eye on it again.
Yeah, we do. I think everybody does. I think I know in the Tyrone Championship, I'm at the matches and see a lot of Derry players at the matches, and Derry people at the Tyrone Championship. I see a lot of Tyrone people watch the Derry Championship. It's just, and the same with Armagh, especially Derry Tyrone, whatever's about it. We seem to follow each other's championships very closely over the years. Some of the most best championship matches I've ever watched were back in the day going to watch Derry Club Championship matches when Lavia at their pump and they were playing against maybe it might have been Dungiven or it might have been Balahi back in the day, and those games will always go back to your memory as incredible championship matches when it was pure knockout championship games. So I think that doesn't change nowadays. You're looking at I watched a lot of the games online this year, the Derry games. The online system is fantastic because you don't get to the game, you can watch it. So I watched a fair few of the games just a matter of interest, and you can still see a lot of good players there. You can see a lot of players coming through. And one of the things we'll have to do at the start of this is sit down and pick our squad. And one thing will be clear: there's players out there that have played in the club championship that maybe aren't on the current squad, will be in the current squad. Will be worth bringing into the squad based on their club performances, and that's really important. You can only really play, or you can only justify being on a county squad if you're playing well for your club, or you're playing well for the county. If you're not doing either of those two, you can't really justify being on a county squad. So I think it'll be really interesting to when we start looking through the player list and introducing a few new players into the squad too.
I suppose that's what Gaels throughout Derry will be wondering: is it an open squad? Is there going to be additions to what was there last year? And have you spoken to any players as of yet?
No, we haven't spoken to the players as a group. I spoke to two players before as part of the consultation process of taking the job, and the first two people I spoke to was two players before I spoke to anybody else, and that to me is the most important thing. And I have to say the players were very honest. They articulated their concerns of where things are. They also promoted the values and promoted the positive things that has been going on for this last number of years. And to be honest with you, those are the two most important people I spoke to that encouraged me. This is a good job. This is the job I wanted to do, because they are the most important people. And players they're people who play football. Coaches are people who coach, and managers are people who manage. The most important thing is people. And those two young men that I met with are two outstanding young men who were very honest with me, and that really encouraged me that this is the right thing to do. But in terms of panel, we haven't sat down to decide on that yet. There will be changes. Yeah. There always is. And I think at this stage when you're starting something fresh, there has to be a newness. There has to be a freshness into the squad. We need to bring in players. We need to bring in more energy. We need to bring in players that are going to lift whatever's there. some players, it'll not be for them, and we'll move on. But that's the nature of high performance sport. We have to move on. We have to start something fresh.
Collective training doesn't start till next month, so you'll probably have a big extended panel for that there. You've no mechanic up this year. How much is that going to hamper you?
Yeah, with the collective training, I have no issue with that. I think it's actually time for players to get away from training. I think we need to allow November, and this time of the year, it's probably the only time of the year they're going to get off. You know, players in a season might get 6 to 8 weeks of a break at the very, very most, and then they're back into the cycle again. And if we don't afford them an opportunity to recover, to regenerate now, you're not going to get it in January. You can't give it to them later on in the year. So this is the time for the players to enjoy that time. Mechanic Cup's a pity it's not on this year. If above all years, you know, I don't think, and it's not even to do with it. Obviously, managers come and go every year, and they use the Mechanic Cup of the pre-season competitions to see what's out there, which would be lovely if we could do that. But also with the advent of the new rules, it would have made sense to allow those competitions play this year under the new rules to prepare you for the start of the league. I think they've missed a trick there this year. I would have been no fear next year if they wanted to let the competition go. Fair enough, but certainly this year, this would have been a good year to keep it on.
I was just going to touch on the new rules. Does that affect the type of player you're looking for this year?
Again, it does. It changes the way you think about the game. The new rules are going to place different demands on positions, on the type of players you need in certain roles within the team. So, of course, you're going to look at different players. You can't go back and say, base your selection on what's went before, because this is a new game. So we'll be studying that closely, and we'll be working out what's the best way going forward. Now, but definitely there'll be changes because of that.
What sort of man is Paddy Tally along the sideline?
I'd like to think I'm quite calm. Interesting enough, I was reading there. Jimmy Smith sent me a WhatsApp message yesterday with the Gaelic Life had done an article on Jim McKeever, and Jim, proud Newbridge man, or Ballymacguigan man, sorry, and Jim, his biography has been launched, I think, in the next couple of weeks. And if I look back at my thoughts about coaching and managing, my first year at St Mary's as a student was 1992, and our coach was Jim McKeever. And I remember saying to myself in that year, when he had, lucky enough and unlucky enough when he had Jim for 1 year. He retired as a lecturer that time, and then he retired. That was the end of that 1 year. But I remember that 1 year college being coached by Jim McKeever, and I remember saying, this is an incredible way to coach and to manage people. I never heard anybody like it before. I'd never experienced a manager like it before. I'd never heard a manager or coach speaking to you the way he did. And I always thought, because everybody ever knew a top point was it's blood and guts, and it's taking the paint of the walls, and it's taking the doors of the hinges and the way out, and very critical and tough. And it was very, lots of times, quite negative and a lot of emotion, where Jim was an absolute gentleman. He made you feel incredibly special. He made you feel as if you're valued as a player, and he wanted to see you learn as much as anything else. And I always felt that's the type of coach and the manager I would always model myself on, somebody who's controlled and now I've been that other guy at times as well, and look back at it and go, was I really that way? But of course you get emotion in the game, but I'd like to think that I'd be more akin to being calm on the line and thoughtful, because really it doesn't really do anybody any good, and it certainly doesn't do the manager any good either.
Will that be tested on day one in Oma?
That's good fun. When I saw league fixtures, the provisional fixtures, I just thought, right, that's a good start. And I'd hear it's a good start for everybody. We've had Malachy and Ryan Porter, who've been in Derry for the last 4 years, who are taking up the throne role. And Malachy is probably in the same position as I am, trying to get things together up there. And then you have me stepping into the Derry role from Tyrone. And then you have the new rules on the first night, under lights on a Saturday night, and a full house. Sure, what's not to love about it?
Finally, Paddy, the ambitious person, do you set goals, do you set ambitions of what you want to achieve? I know it's very early days, you haven't got the squad together yet, you've the management just put together. what's your ambitions or goals for?
Well, I always, I suppose personal ambition. I have a very high personal ambition in life in terms of sport. I've always liked working at the top level. That's why when an opportunity comes, like to go and say and work in Kerry, you go there to win. You don't go to Kerry for the holidays and for the scenery. You go there and you make that travel and you do the hard yards and ultimately to be successful. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. And this is no different. You don't take this job on other than to win. So on a personal level, winning is the key to being a manager at this level. But that's the way down the line. At the moment, it's about just starting, getting working with the players, setting their plans in place. Our initial goals will be get our squad together, get our plans in place, and when we're ready to hit the pitch, we'll start working.
Paddy, on behalf of myself and all of Derry GAA TV, and I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of all Derry Gaels throughout the world, to wish you the very best, your management team, and thank you for taking time out to have a chat with us.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good man.